All right, guys, without much ado, let's kickstart this evening with Arzan Khambatta, a world-renowned sculptor and glorious background, trained as an architect. When I spoke to him, he said sculpting was something he always wanted to do. The architecture degree was something he was almost pushed into, but I'm sure it had some advantages, and he's going to share those with us. Made a career in an extremely unconventional domain, and obviously is here to talk about how he did that, how he navigated his way through all of this. And without much ado, let me kickstart. Arzan, thank you so much for being on the show.
Welcome, welcome. Thank you.
All
My
right.
pleasure.
So, as you know, at Reach Ivy, we're an education and careers advisory. So I always like to kickstart, by asking, what was your early influence like? What was your childhood like? What was the early sort of learnings for you?
So basically, I did my schooling in Jamnabai Nursery School. And at that point of time, it was one of the absolute best schools around. I mean,
Yeah.
nowadays, talk of so many other international schools and all that. At that time, I remember we were kids, so we had no choice as to, we didn't select our own schools then.
Right.
But I grew up in the Parsi colony, and a couple of parents researched, and they found out that there was a gentleman called Mr. Soli Pauri, who
Right.
was appointed by the Golden Tobacco Group then, the Narsi Monji Group, to sort of go abroad and study schools abroad and start this fabulous, groundbreaking school in Bombay. And that's what he did. It was phenomenal. At that time, it had language labs and a shopping center where we could sort of buy things with paper money and all that. And that
Sure.
was so exciting to me because it was completely off the beaten track. But then, of course, slowly, I guess the ICSE curriculum poured in and things got stricter, and then things got more streamlined into subjects and homework and etc. And I was never good at studies. I mean every kid will vouch for it. I was never good at studies. And the thing is that showed. But every book of mine had sketches. Every textbook, every column, every behind the book, under the cover, under the brown paper cover had sketches and things which were there. So I think, now that I think about it, I was wired that way right from the beginning. You
You would
understand?
you think you were naturally wired that way?
I think I was definitely naturally wired that way, and tremendous push from my parents, because I mean, my mom was a school teacher, so she used to do her charts and stuff like that. Dad's an architect, still practices, and he used to work at home and all that. And of course, whatever I used to do, tremendous encouragement in terms of chart paper, in terms of colors and crayons, and sort of literally
Okay.
draw there and do anything. And I
So
think that
so they nurtured it, huh? They nurtured it. They
absolutely
gave you the supplies.
Yes, yes, totally. I mean, even later when I started sculpture, I mean, I didn't have money to buy the first few machines that I needed to do sculptures. They, of course,
Sure.
guided me and pushed me there. But coming back to the school, I mean, you'll be surprised that even in the art class, I never used to follow the same directions as my art teacher, because I
Wow.
just,
Okay.
it was very boring, you know. So I had this crazy urge to do things my way and in a different way. I think that was just completely sort of in my head, and till date, I love doing that. So when I go to the workshop, I sort of literally am starting fresh, and I sort of wondering like a kid as to what toy will I get to play today, and what can I do
Uh-huh.
today that I have not done yesterday. You know, so that I think that in Hindi words, that what do you call it, that kida, you know, that was there right from the beginning. And I think what I did was I fed that. I didn't let it go. I fed that urge to do stuff. I let myself go. I experimented. I still experiment. And I think that's what works. I'll
So
just tell you one
so
little
yeah,
in
please
school.
go ahead. Yeah.
One little story. It's hilarious. It's one of my favorites.
Sure.
So I had gone to the Salarjan Museum as a kid. Okay. And we never had cameras then. I mean, forget your cell phone cameras. We never had normal cameras also, because films were expensive, correct? So
Right.
when I came back from the summer vacation, and then my Hindi class was going on, all that I had seen out there, I was pouring out in terms of sketches on the textbooks and all that. And I think the teacher saw my hand moving in a little different way. She knew I was not writing Hindi text, and she called me saying, "Show me your book." And I was very fascinated by the weaponry department at Salarjung
Museum.
Museum, where beautiful muskets and swords and spears and all that. And I took that book, and it had all those stuff, like all those maces and daggers and spears and all that. And she looked at it and she's telling me, "Beta, aapka man mein kitna violence hai?" So it was hilarious. That just stuck in my head. But that is the way I was. I just couldn't get myself to do the regular stuff, and it just didn't happen. Today in this day and age, you can classify students as dyslexic and attention disorder and all. During my time, it was clever, average, dumb. That's it. There was no other thing. So I was in the latter, and everyone treated me like that. Then finally, everyone accepted he is bad. That's it. So that's the way it started.
Okay. So, I'm glad you brought up the social aspect of this, right? So people said, okay, you classified you as like you're bad in studies. Was there any other social implication, with your friends, your cousins, your family, of people being like, Arzan is just a little crazy? Like, was there that perception, or was it like, wow, Arzan is gifted? Which way were you?
Both. Gifted and crazy come together. Because
correct, exactly.
If you see, I mean, any great artist, they were all called madmen in the beginning.
Correct,
they were all,
correct.
But that is because you're doing something that is unconventional.
Sure.
You're doing something that is so different from others do that the normal people cannot fathom it and put it in their frame of mind that this is normal. It is
as madness. Yes,
it
exactly.
Is like I remember when I was welding away and all that, my friends used to join me at the studio.
Sure.
This small little studio that I had then, and they used to literally, I mean, they were friends after all, and they would always pick up stuff and say, "What the hell have you done?" Sort of stuff like that. But I got a lot of, parents' encouragement was there tremendously. But there was a lot of negativism from the colony people. You used to see me all dirty and welding away and all that. They would call, "What the hell are you doing? Go and work in your dad's office. Your dad's such a respect and you should be there. And here you are playing with scrap and collecting bangar and things of that sort." So, but believe me, all these negative things never got me down. It always charged me further. It always charged me further. I knew that response was because I was doing things different. It was because I was definitely out of the box, way out of the box. And I loved that response because that sort of...
That validated for you, huh?
That I was definitely on the right path and not thinking a normal person should be thinking. It's that way.
And as an artist, you want that validation, that you're not thinking like everyone else.
You're not, that is not your main point. But if people keep on telling you that, then you're doing some right stuff. Then you're not
on the right track.
And painting things which people have seen. You're picking up, you're going to scrapyards, you're going to construction sites, you're going to garages, you're carrying that dirty metal in your hand, you're getting it and you're welding it. Obviously, you're doing something crazy,
Sure. Okay. So how does it even start? You're in school, you have this creative aspect, you're sketching away, you're doodling, you're doing all this stuff. How do you go from that to sculpting? How does that transition happen for you?
So, I think throughout my school, whatever arts and crafts we used to do, I found I was definitely better at doing 3D stuff than 2D stuff. The colors are not my calling. It was more, I would rather take the paper, crumple it and stick it with other crumpled paper and do something which is 3D other than just color and sort of watercolor, other than just draw a matka that was put in front of me with a rose inside and say, sort of duplicate that. And that just didn't work like art to me at all. It just didn't get into my head. So what happened was, this was after the 10th standard. Myself, my elder sister, younger sister, and one other friend, we were all pushed to summer classes, isn't it? I mean, you can't hang around all summer. So there was this very interesting art teacher from Goa called Mr. Anand Mohan Naik. And he was conducting these art classes, the kind that I would like, nothing conventional. He would get glass one day, he would get a stone one day, and he said, "Let's see what you can do with that." Hammer that stone and do stuff like that. Very interesting. But the thing is that he taught us in a studio of a sculptor called Adi Daverwala. Adi Daverwala, by that time, had passed. He was not around. But I had heard of him. I had heard of him through my dad's friends who had his pieces. And when I entered that place, it had his work, incomplete work. He had his incomplete sketches on chalk on the board. he had his something what he called the thinking chair, and there were books lying around. There was this musty smell, and there were wooden shavings, there were wooden chisels and stuff like that. And and now that I think about it, ages later, it felt as if it was something that was left incomplete, which needed to be picked up and started. And I saw the welding machine, and I saw that heavy metal which he had used in his works, and I think that was a turning point in me.
That was your
that I want to do this. This is what I want to do. And I also then did wood and metal and everything. So I think that was a major turning point in me deciding that I want to do this.
Okay, so it was that summer class and that studio and your first sort of touch and feel experience of this.
Correct.
Then what happens? Like, do you get some training? Like, do you have someone train you on this, or is it all touch and feel and sort of figure it out for yourself?
I'll tell you what. So the moment I knew that I wanted to work with iron, and I wanted to put bits of iron together into a story and create sculptures. So what I did was I had to learn welding. Okay. Now there is no course in Bombay which will take a 16-year-old to teach welding. It's supposed to be very dangerous. A lot of heat and 1,200-degree flame and etc., so on. And so what happened was I found this fellow who made these rolling shutters and grills, normal your grills and gates and stuff like that in Mahim. So I stayed in Dadar. I used to walk every evening over there. 2 evenings I walked there. At about 8:30, he said, I can't show you right now. I said, teach me welding. I said, I can't show you right now. My boss is there. So I said, what time does your boss go? So he's saying 9 p.m. So I said, and I'll come by 9 p.m. So I walked around, and I went in at 9 p.m. And I said, teach me welding. So he actually taught me welding. I said, I'm coming back tomorrow again. So I went the other day. So literally, I learned my welding in those 2 evenings. Then when my parents
at 16, this is when you were 16.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
okay.
Back, I said, I just want one welding machine. That's it. That's what I want from you. So I bought a welding machine, I remember, from Crawford Market. 2,500 rupees I must have spent at that time. Okay, Dad spent, not me. I didn't have any money of my own. So 2,500 rupees I bought that machine. And then it was day in and day out, picking up metal, cutting metal and welding and welding and welding and welding. Literally welding away. It was as if I was possessed. And of course, now that I think about it, now if I have to do it, I don't think I'll be able to do it. There was some crazy. Something that got me connected to that metal so much. I mean, anyway, I'm terrible at sports. And people would say, why are you not going and playing out with someone? Go out and do this, go out. And here I was sitting and welding and welding and welding away, And it was just something that had overtaken me and I wanted to create. And I just loved it. I enjoyed the whole thing, That's how it started.
Actually, can I make a small request? Could you just shift a little to your left?
This one?
Because the flow of people joining and the whole flow is coming.
Oh, this way, right?
Yes, to your yeah. Okay, perfect. All right. So you're welding day in and day out. What happens when it's time to go to college? Did you want to go to college? Did you say I'm just going to sit this out and weld at home?
So I didn't want to go to college at all.
You didn't want to go. Okay.
And so while I was doing this, 2 of my pieces I sold, at that time. Through Dad's friends only, because they were architects. They would come home, they would see it, and so one piece went, second piece went, and I thought, I'm set. I don't have to do anything. I'll just sell sculptures from now on. Although they sold at 1,500 at that time, 2,000. It was okay, but it was it's that's the time when I realized that I could sell this. I mean, I was not making anything at all.
You knew that at least someone would pay for it.
Hobby, So then what happened was, at that time, Dad said, nothing doing. You just can't keep on welding day in and day out and sort of do that. Different times, you're talking of different times before internet, before MTV, and that generation you're talking about,
Sure.
Where profession mattered, a degree mattered, So Dad said, okay, fine, do something. Architecture seemed to be the most, automatic thing for me to get in, because I figured both were 3D arts. Sculpture and architecture both have absolute 3D forms that you get with. And Dad's an architect, so I said, chalo. So I joined architecture. So when I joined architecture, but believe me, I enjoyed my 5 years of architecture, because
you made it through, huh? You made it through the 5 years.
Yes, I did a 5-year course in architecture, and I loved it because I found that I was getting decent marks because I was finally doing something that was possible for me to do. You
Sure.
understand? Giving
Sure.
me a project to design so and so, I could do that. Don't give me
Sure.
a chemistry diagram and say sort this and make a derivatives of
Sure.
this, and it's not done that way,
Right. So
And
this was up your alley. This sort
so
of
this was
fit.
completely up my alley, and I loved it. I actually loved it because for the first time, I started getting marks which were decent,
Sure.
And when I realized that, literally, now after so many years, I talk to so many students, I counsel so many students, I see their work, I help them.
Sure.
The thing is, every student, whether you call him dumb or whatever, first of all, don't ever call a student or a kid dumb.
Sure.
Whatever he is, every kid has got a superpower in him. Literally, I believe that. That one little
Sure.
thing has to be found.
Sure.
I was lucky to found it at an early age, and then I pushed. See, finding it and not working on it is different.
Sure.
Finding it, and you have to get at it.
You have to nurture it, right?
One thing I'm never modest about is working hard. You cannot do anything without doing that,
There's no
So
shortcuts.
I
Right.
pushed and pushed, literally like crazy. Even today, I'm not relaxing because I'm at this stage, because you can't do that. You have to keep pushing. You have to keep creating. And this is to every parent, sort of don't undermine your child by comparing him to the others. Unfortunately, during my time, clever and dumb only was judged on the marks that you'd get in school and
Correct.
college. And it was so
Unfortunately, it's still a
it
lot
was
like
so
that.
stupid.
It's still a lot like that. Yeah.
In a wicked way, I'm sorry to say, but in a very wicked way, I know students who came first in my Jamnabai, in my other college, in my architecture college. Believe me, they are nowhere now.
Nowhere today, right? Yeah.
I know who they are. Of course, I definitely won't name them.
Sure. Of course.
Nowhere. Why the hell do you have to keep on pushing for marks when it's not even important this much? It is
Right.
only self and how you sort of push your own passion, and most importantly, how you sort of behave with other people. How you talk to other people. In my line of work and in every line of work, your contact to the other person has to be so suitable, has to be so sort of positive. That is what will get you ahead in life, not your marks. I wish I had my report cards with me. I could show people what I did in school, but I don't. Senseless, absolutely senseless. Trying to compare your kid with the other. Look how much marks he's. Hell with him, let him get whatever marks he wants.
So, as Sabah is saying in the chat, it's important to find your spark. You found it early, and then you nurtured it, and you're saying you still continue to nurture it.
Yes.
Okay, so tell us how you nurtured it, right? So you figured out this inclination. You got your parents to buy you that welding machine. You enroll in architecture college. How do you still keep it going? Like what would you spend your days and your weeks doing? Were you literally sitting in a studio and just constantly creating?
Yes, I'll tell you. So I'll give you a little chronology. Okay. So I started sculpting in 1982, which was I finished my 10th, and then I sort of started sculpting with the welding machine. And when I say started sculpting, means I'm talking of going to the studio at 9, working, sometimes coming home for lunch or not coming home for lunch, and then working till about 6, 7 in the evening. And
wow, okay.
Continuously going to scrapyards, collecting material, going to garage sites, going to construction sites, collecting stuff, welding, sketching on the floor, sort of trying to sort of create pieces which made sense to me, playing with the metal. And it was a complete, like I said, I was in a bubble at that time. I was in a bubble, completely separate from everything. And all that mattered to me was my machine and the metal, and I kept going on. And then, of course, slowly, so 85, I joined architecture. I fared very badly in the 12th, very, very badly, because at that time, I was taken over by this sculpture bug, and I didn't want to study. I just didn't want to study. So I kept welding and all that. So when I talk to students, when I tell them what I did in school and how badly I fared, I tell them that I did not waste my time.
Sure.
Although I didn't study, I was not whiling my time sitting at a railing or smoking or going to movies and whiling. I was working day in and day out, creating,
You were creating, sure.
Yeah, and to me, time is very important. I don't like wasting time. So I think that is, to me, to just sit around not doing anything just didn't,
that didn't appeal to you.
Even then.
Yeah.
So tell me.
So I was just going to ask, as I had a musician on the show earlier, and similar, right? They sort of caught up and so obsessive about that
Yeah.
zone. But as musicians, they always have a guru or a teacher who's sort of guiding them. In your
Yes.
field, did you get a mentor, teacher, guide, someone who was sort of helping you along, or was this a solo pursuit for you?
I think except besides Anand Mohan Naik, who sort of gave me that little spark in the beginning, I think a very major factor was my parents helping me out.
Parents.
You know,
Okay.
actually commenting on my work, telling me what I did, what I didn't do, and then of course my wife Kushnuma then had joined me, and her friends and my friends, and then the positivity grew when people
Sure.
saw I was working and I was not there to just fool around with metal and do some stupid stuff. People
Sure.
knew that I was serious about it. So 82 I started. Uh, 85, 86, 85 I joined architecture because Dad said nothing doing, you have to do that.
Sure.
If I was joining architecture, I would finish my college by afternoon and then go to the studio and do my welding and all that. I didn't give it up.
Sure.
Doing side by side. While I was
Wow.
in, I got my first commission piece by architect Naushik Talati, who is and was
Of
and will always
course.
be God of architecture at that
Sure.
time. And for him to call me on site and say, sort of do a work for me, that was phenomenal. So I did this Mughal king sitting outside the Jewel of India restaurant,
Sure. Of
single-handedly.
course.
So from 82 to 93, I worked single-handedly, literally single-handedly, no helpers, nothing.
Sure.
Not even to carry the works, not even to deliver, nothing, absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
Then
Okay.
93, I got my first show at Jahangir Art Gallery. So that
Okay.
was the when, let's say, 200, 300 more people saw my work. Only
Okay.
exercise the people in the colony who used to see it. Then another show 3 years hence. It grew, it grew, it grew, So it's been
Right.
a very natural climb. It's been a very natural climb. There's no overnight success. There's nothing like that.
But you
And
didn't you didn't have a teacher or a guru to actually teach you the art of sculpting. You know, your parents supported you, your wife, your
yeah,
friends were all there,
yeah,
but
yes.
the actual trade, like the actual art of sculpting, you figured it out.
No one figured it out and still figuring it out. You
Still
never, you
figuring it out.
never complete it. It's still
Sure.
figuring out. And every new technique that comes out, whether it is water jet cutting or laser jet cutting, and right now 3D printing, I sort of try and bring that into my work because I love
Sure.
experimenting. And you see, it's like first from 82 to 99, I use scrap metal. And now I don't use so
Okay.
much, I use new metal. So it was working very well. I could have said, okay, superb, this is working so well. Just let me continue with this and keep on going on. But
Sure.
this inquisitive mind didn't let me do that. I love probing into new materials. I
Okay.
love studying new things. And then hence the portfolio grew. Copper,
Okay.
stainless steel, iron. Of course, iron was always there. I'm talking of casting, bronze and stuff like that, So
Okay.
this inquisitiveness is always there, and it has to be there for you to create, has to
Okay.
be
So
there.
so that's one of the key traits. You're saying inquisitiveness, obviously ability to think out of the box, and also self-belief. That in everything you're saying, I'm seeing a lot of self-belief. You
Correct.
you seem to just have known that this is who
Yeah,
you are and this is what you're going to do.
true.
So not a sliver of doubt, huh? All throughout you were just like this is it.
Not at all. So my one question I get asked all the time, and I have two words to answer always. What is your advice to students?
Right.
Experiment fearlessly. That's it. Literally,
Experiment fearlessly.
even when I notice when I'm going to the Kalagora festival to create
Right.
students to conduct students workshops and all that.
Workshops.
Children are there, parents are standing there and telling them what to pick up. Beta ye uthao, beta ye karo, better look back and all that. Beta aisa karo. There is this control has to be broken. You
Right.
experiment fearlessly. This is constantly sort of on this student to create to something. I literally have seen when someone creates something, the parent says, "Bana banao," use more material. Where
Right.
does leave the bacha alone? Let him experiment. Let him do
Just leave
whatever.
them alone.
So, yeah. So this and it carries on. This standing at the back and telling them what to do. They keep
Right.
on over their shoulder when they're creating because they cannot create fearlessly, and that has to be
Right.
broken.
Yeah, great. I love that. I love that thought. I'm
Mm.
going to pick up a question here from Ayman Co, who says, "What do your workshops look like, and what tools are there?" Let's talk a little bit
So,
about the workshops you conduct.
so my workshop looks like an industrial factory. Okay.
Okay.
So I've changed number of workshops. Okay, I have a very comfortable workshop right now, which was not the initially. It was all one room where everything used to happen. But now when you enter the workshop, there is a sort of an entranceway where I keep some of my complete sculptures. There is my cabin, which is my oasis, which I use to relax and all that, more to relax than to work. And then the rest of it looks like an industrial workshop. It's a proper industrial gala, which you will find welding machines, you'll find gas torches, you'll find grinders, you'll find a lot of metal lying around, you'll find a lot of incomplete pieces hanging from the walls. Okay, a lot of incomplete pieces because I work on multiple things at the same time. I leave them halfway, you keep on seeing them. The idea is to have everything within your optical window.
Frame.
You have to
Okay.
keep on. You do something and put it away. You put it away on the loft packed, it's out. You never see it. Here, I'm
Right.
seeing pieces. So whenever I feel like creating, I pick out certain pieces and try to sort of formulate something if the need happens. You have to start from scratch sometimes, most of the times, but sometimes you see these pieces and then you pick out and then you sort of do things from them. So it's a very amorphous space. Depending on the kind of work that's going on, the space changes. If there are 4 small works going on, then it looks different. If there is 1 large work going on, it looks different. You can't even see from one side of the studio to the other, you know. So basically, if you want to picture it, it's an industrial fabrication workshop. That's what it is.
Okay, you're lucky. You're one of the rare people in Bombay who can change their office around and have a new office whenever you feel like. I'm in Co. I hope that answered your question. She says, "Thank you. Please start a sculpting school for kids."
Sure, definitely.
Oh,
It's
okay,
it's on my mind,
it's it's
literally.
it's on your mind.
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay, guys, it's on his mind. Going to take this question here from Chrysanth4, who says, "How strong is sculpting as a career in India for a student?" Okay, having gone through this, would you recommend it for somebody else?
Well, definitely recommend it if he has the fire to pursue it. You can ask one of the topmost photographers, will I make money if I take up photography? How do you reply to that?
Sure.
It all depends on the individual. I would say, yes, go for it. If that spark is there within you, go for it.
If
Because
you have the fire. Okay.
be able to sort of how you say, get proficient in it and get better. Every career, you take a fashion designer. Okay, there are some fashion
Sure.
designers who are struggling to survive. There are some fashion designers who are doing okay. There are some fashion designers which are doing very good, and there are some who have acquired star status,
Who
isn't
are the
it?
peak.
At the peak.
Right, right,
Same thing with photographers, same thing with artists, same thing with sculptors, same thing with dancers. So very
right.
difficult. Is it enough to survive? I would say yes, of course it's enough to survive, but don't do it for the money. Don't do anything for the money. If you're
Don't
going
do
in
it
for
for them.
making money, go into business. You know, do some business somewhere. Go into finance. Get a job somewhere. If your primary focus is to make money, then anything creative is not the reply for you. No,
It's not here. Okay.
you create because you
Okay,
want to
great.
create, and then you hope and pray, and then you believe in yourself that what you're doing is good, and it will sell, and it will sort of suffice to take you forward. You know, that
Okay.
way.
You're creating for the pure joy of creating.
Oh yeah, of
The
course.
motive is to
It's
okay.
and automatically when someone's enjoying it so much, or it will yield results. No, it will yield results
Sure.
because you're doing something that's good, and keep a
Right.
very high level of acceptance for your own work. You know, as a discipline, never let a work out of your studio which is even you have a 1% doubt. You know, never even 1%. You have to be so happy with that piece and then give it to the client, and then he'll be happy. You know,
Sure.
never have the
Okay.
like, never say chalega. You know, something like that. That
Okay.
level of your supervision stamp has to be very, very high, of a very high standard. You know.
Okay. I have a question here, since you talked about a client and a question about the legend. Could you talk a little bit about the legend? How
Oh
did
yes,
it come to you?
yes,
And, what is the story behind it?
sure. So the legend is the name of the sculpture, which is created from the scrap of the INS Vikrant. It's
Sure.
a it's a memorial to the INS Vikrant, and it stands at the Lion Gate where the Navy docks is. And phenomenal story. I mean, it's one of my absolute favorite pieces, only because of the story attached with it. So, as you know, the INS Vikrant served us very well during all our wars.
Sure.
We lot of wars with that. And there were fighter pilots who used to fly off the decks of the Vikrant, go to war and come back by evening, land again. And a couple of these fighter pilots, headed by one ex-Commodore, Mike Bada, Parsi gentleman, he came to me and he said, it is a shame that the government has decided to scrap the Vikrant. Okay?
Sure.
Initially, they had thought of making it into a museum, okay, which would have been wonderful, which would have been superb. And you retain the glory of that ship which has served you, you know.
Sure.
And he said they've decided to scrap it. And now he had tears in his eyes because they said that ship was like their mother. He said when they would go out on the planes and come back, the first thing they would do is shower and go inside and have a hot cup of soup. And they would feel the warmth of the ship that sort of cocooned them. And there was so much love for it, you know. And then they said, how the hell could they have decided to sell it off for kg of the material? There was no historic value attached to it. It was sold on weight. So many tons, so much price for the iron, so sell it.
Sure.
Mike Bada, ex-Commodore Mike Bada, and a couple of colleagues pooled in their own money. They pooled in their own money and they took me to the scrapyard and I selected the scrap and they bought the scrap from their own money.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They bought the scrap from me, they gave it to me and they said, okay, fine, now make us a memorial so that at least for us, the memory of the INS Vikrant remains alive, you know? So that's what we did. I told them, I said, I'm not going to make a replica of the ship because it would look like a model, it's senseless. Let's do a sculpture. Let's do a sort of semi-abstract version of that ship. So I've made it look stronger. I've given it a little weird angles and stuff like that. So it looks as if it's like a abstract, how you say, it's more of a feeling than the ship itself, you know. So that was what the legend was about. So it's wonderful, the story attached to it. And one of my absolute prized sculptures, I would say, in terms of, because of the thought that went into it and because of the, I would say, the bravery of these warriors who pooled in their own money. You know what our service did.
Absolutely.
But they poured in the money because they wanted it sort of done this way, right?
Great. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that story. You know, since you spoke about the story and you were talking about the creative process, if you had to talk about how you know, if you're commissioned to create something, is there a process you follow? You know, when I talk to creative people, some dismiss this as saying, no, there is no such thing as process in creativity. And some actually give me a very structured response saying, of course, there is a creative process and these are the 5 steps that I would follow. So very curious to understand in your world, do you think you have a process? Is there like a step A, step B, step C? Or you go into the studio and you're like, every day is different and, you know, it might pan out in a new way every day?
So basically, if I'm working for a show of mine, then the day is open. Then I can do anything because there's no client in mind. Okay, there's no end client in mind, and I just create as I go along. Okay, I just create as I go along. Now, as you know, about 98% of my pieces are commission works. So the first thing I do is I go and see the site. So now I'm telling you the process. I go and see, I meet the client, I understand what the client wants, whether it's a corporate or a hotel or a residence. If it's a residence, more personal. So what does the client like? What does he want to portray in his house? Okay, what does he want to show in his house? What are the finishes around that space? And so I use materials which would go or contrast depending on how I want to create this sculpture. And then I give a sketch. I give a sketch. I do not give a computerized 3D render. I give a pencil sketch. That's what I do. Because I've brought up without computers and I still feel scratching the pencil to the paper and creating stuff makes me think better other than sitting on and doing something like that. Okay. So I sketch it out. Sometimes you're so sure that you only give one option. Sometimes when you don't know the client too well, you give 1 or 2 options trying to judge what the client wants, you know. And I'm laughing because someone said, I like your designer mustache. It's just grown. So,
I have a question coming up on the mustache as well, but right after this process.
So I do give the sketch. Then there's a little, sometimes it's a little back and forth. Sometimes, okay, fine, approved, design is perfect. Then you sit and give an estimate. Okay? Most important. It boils down to the estimate, to the
Sure.
budget
Yeah.
thing. Once that is approved, then you start the creation, actual manufacturing process of making, not manufacturing, creating the sculpture as is there and there, you know? So
Okay.
there is the process. So this is the process. And then, of course, you go and install it. Some installations are very simple. Some installations, you could just pick up the piece and put it there, installed. Some installations are as difficult as, I have made one which has got 380 different pieces which were to be bolted on site while
Oh
it
my
was
God.
from the ceiling. So some installations are as difficult as that. There are some installations where the superstructure, because I balance my pieces, the superstructure is done by the client and I've got to marry my sculpture along with that. So it all depends on how you do it. And of course, you put it up and yeah.
So I want to go stay on the process side. So you sort of explain the functionality of it. So let's say you've got the client approval now. The actual creative process is what I'm trying to push on, you know. Do you see the end product and then you build towards the end product? Or is it an evolution? You know, are you going in there and playing with it? Or is it something you've already visualized at the start and then you're just sort of, you know, going from point A to the end?
So if it's a commission sculpture, then I have visualized the final product because the
You
client
visualized it.
to know what the final product is going to look like.
I
Correct.
see.
There I have the final product, but I still am at the liberty of doing some changes within that as long as I
Okay.
stick to it. Most of the time now, of course, with so much of practice and so many years, the sculpture comes out exactly like the sketch that I've drawn.
Okay.
Sometimes I tweak it a little because I find that this looks better than that whilst I'm making it. Okay.
Sure.
But
Okay.
what you're talking about of starting a piece and then taking it day by day into whichever direction is going, that happens for the pieces that are due for my show. Because there is no designated space that they're going to be in. There is no end client in mind. Anyone could buy it. So I create whatever comes to my mind, you know. But in terms of work, yes, the sketch has to go so that it is. I have had only coming to that, I have had only one client, literally only one client, who I have made a sculpture for. He didn't ask for a design. He didn't ask for a budget. Not because he's so big or anything like that, but just that trust. And I'm talking about Madhavan. So when I did his sculpture back, he said, "This is the space. Do whatever you want.
Do whatever you like."
I don't even want to see it while you're creating or anything. You know, just do it.
And because he's an artist, right? And he knows that you're given.
And don't forget, he's a very grounded chap. That helps.
Sure.
That helps.
So
a lot.
and he knows as an artist, all you want is your creative liberty, right? Like once you're at that stage, and he clearly recognized that in you as well.
To be able to be brave enough to say, you know, just do what you want. You know.
Sure. Okay. Tell me, how do you price this stuff? You know, ultimately you're buying pieces of some scrap, you're buying pieces of metal, you're buying all these materials. So there is a material cost to it, obviously, but the material cost is a tiny fraction, right? How do you price by hour? Like how you price by concept? I mean, it's such a vague.
The prices for any artist, forget mine. Prices for any artist would depend on your seniority.
Of course,
how many years you work, where you stand. So I can definitely say, okay, fine, you know, I'm above XYZ and I'm below ABC, something like that, you know, so that is where I stand. And you have to see that you increase your prices. Of course, definitely inflation, everything increases, but you have to see that your prices increase, but gradually. You have to be very sensible about it. The Indian art buying public is very, very well educated about pricing. If you try and pass one on someone suddenly, let's say a very big shot chap has bought my piece and I feel, okay, fine, oh my God, this fellow has bought it. I'm going to double my prices tomorrow. Nothing's going to sell. You have to be very, very logical to do the maths and say, okay, fine, you know, last show, this piece sold at, let's say X, I'm going to add X plus 20% this time on that. Not X plus 80%. X plus. So that is the way. You have to be very, very intelligent about it. You have to test the market. And of course, in terms of commission, so I'll tell you. So this is the art, depending on the artist. Then what does it depend on? It depends on size. It depends on material. It depends on the detailing. The most important.
The complexity of the thing.
Times a 2-foot piece can cost more than a 7-footer.
Of course.
Because kind of details that you put in, because of the material that you use, etc., etc. So it's a very debatable thing, but you have to be intelligent enough not to cross your limit, so that no one questions you. You know, it's that way.
Yeah.
So you have to be very careful.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you for explaining that. Since the comment has come about your designer mustache, it's obviously very Dali-ish in its structure and look. So, you know, who is your inspiration? Is there one person you follow? How many? And, you know, what are some of the traits you've picked up from different people?
I of course, there are a lot of artists I love. My one artist, if you tell me my most fascinating one, is Salvador Dali, definitely. But that's not why, because the mustache is there. The mustache just happened. Okay. But Salvador Dali is definitely very, very high on my list. Anish Kapoor as a sculptor. And his sensibilities and the way he handles material and all that, phenomenal. Your Jeff Koons also, in today's day and age, the balloon reflective figures that he does and all that. Some beautiful work, you know. So, I mean, I'm talking of these three. Of course, Dali always at a very, very higher level. And Picasso also. In terms of Indian context, again, of course, I love my Aditya Virmala's works also, whose studio I saw and I stuff and all that. And there are quite a few. But if you want to name one, I would say Salvador Dali, definitely. For his absolute madness and for his skill. The combination of skill and madness to create the kind of works that he did was superior sort of stuff, you know.
Okay, so Dali tops the list, but there are many others who.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. And tell us, like, for the uninitiated, right? For people who are not sculptors, how, if we saw a piece, if you were to do like a quick, you know, art appreciation or sculptor appreciation, you know, 3 things to look at. Like, what should we look at? You know, the artists you mentioned, I've been to their exhibits, I've seen their shows. But I come out like maybe 80% of the audience saying, oh, wow, that was amazing, because I know it was a Dali creation. But I don't really know how to judge it, to be absolutely honest. So, and a lot of people say, oh, it's the way it made you feel. Is that the same? Like, you know, with paintings, they say, okay, don't worry about the technique, just how did the art make you feel? But with this, there is obviously technique. So what is the technique that one must look for when they see a piece?
I think, okay, it's a superb question. So number one, I keep on telling everyone. So I hear so many people coming out of a gallery and say, I don't understand modern art. That is the most common. They don't say art, they say modern art. I don't understand art. I see an abstract and I don't understand it. Okay.
Sure.
To them, the first thing I say is start from the beginning. First, don't try to understand it. See if you like that work or not, just visually first. Visually, is that piece doing something to you or not? Is it connecting to you, or you're just seeing it and just moving away? If you're seeing it and move it away, fine. That's the reason why a person should see more art. They should see more galleries, even work they don't like. Sure. When you see work which you like, which you don't like, it slowly starts forming a library in your mind and you're able to evaluate work. Correct? So, in a sculpture...
Like, so you have a frame of reference, you're saying. See the good stuff, see the bad stuff. Say, okay, yeah.
You can't compare a sculpture by Anish Kapoor to a Jaipur miniature, which may have taken, let's say, 10 times more time to do it. You can't say, oh my God, this is much more laborious, so this is better than that. You can't compare it. Contemporary art, you can't even compare one sculptor to the other. The styles has to be similar to compare. So, for me, coming to that, I would say, look at to me, this is my thing. Look at the effort that the artist has put in. That is important. Look at the thought process that the artist has put in. That is important. What I don't like is, in today's date, the conceptual art concept, where I have seen an empty room with one brick in the center of the room and a large essay written on it. That, to me, doesn't make sense. I want to see the artist's effort. I want to see the artist's labor. I want to see the artist's thought process into creating that piece. You know, and of course, like I said, the first thing, if someone walks into art gallery, you pick up 10 people from the road who've never gone to an art gallery. Okay, push them into a modern contemporary art gallery, they'll get flummoxed by the kind of things that's there, correct?
Right, of
So
course.
they only see whether you like it or not, don't like it. There are some
Hmm.
people like it. They say, okay, fine, this is good. And then automatically the wheels start turning and they try to realize why they like it and why they don't like it. In
Hmm.
our country, contemporary art on the streets is minimal. It's not as much
Sure,
as there. We've started putting pieces out, of course. It is improving, but it's not as much as it was there 60 years back in UK and Mexico and
sure,
Paris. People were hit by contemporary art continuously day in and day out.
sure.
Educates them. Whether you like the piece or not is secondary, but it
Hmm.
educates them. They start forming these uh, sort of gradations in their mind. I like this artist,
Sure.
I don't like that. I like that
Hmm.
artist last show, but this time I don't like it. The more you see
Sure,
it, the more you get educated without reading about the work. Visually,
sure.
you get educated just by seeing stuff, and that is the best way to do it.
Okay, great. So basis that explanation, if you were to pick a piece, with the, you mentioned, see the labor that the person has put in and the thought process. So describe a piece for us. Like pick up any piece and then sort of just break it out for us.
So let me take one of my most favorite outdoor sculptures, which
Please,
is
yeah.
the done by Anish Kapoor in Chicago.
Chicago.
Okay,
Okay.
Chicago, the Cloud Gate. It's called the Bean also. It's called the
The
Bean,
bean,
correct?
yes. Where you can sort of see your reflection through those
Yeah,
big
yeah,
pieces.
yeah.
Yes, okay.
Fabulous. To
Hmm.
me, a person who deals with metal, the kind of workmanship that you require to create that is unfathomable.
Hmm.
If the cost to make that sculpture is staggering means beyond your belief, beyond anything that you have imagined, only because it is made up of several stainless steel sheets which were welded together. If
Okay.
if I tell a client today that I will give you this finish, but this is what I'll require, he'll say, to get lost, give me something that is less finished, but
Sure.
give me a price. So forget the pricing. Of course, he got the pricing for that. That's why he could do it. But if you see the finishing on that piece, if you
Yeah.
know how metal is worked, if you know how stainless steel works, and how difficult it is to join and to not show a joint at
Right.
all throughout that large sculpture, it is huge. The cloud gate is a huge sculpture. It looks very small in a photograph, but you can
Right,
walk.
right,
It's like a bridge. You can walk underneath it and come
right.
out from the other side. It's 60 feet long this way. And that to me is absolute work of art, because the amount of technicians, the amount of people that may have worked on it under Mr. Kapoor's supervision is phenomenal.
Sure.
You have to understand metal to understand that to get a finish like that is practically, I would say, impossible, literally impossible. And he's managed to do it, I mean, perfect to the T, you know. So that is
Okay,
wonderful.
great. Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that because I have seen that piece and now you having explained it,
Oh,
the
it's
visual of it is all coming back to
go,
me. So,
go on the net and see what the price was that for the piece.
okay,
It'll shock you. It'll shock you.
okay, I'll definitely do that. Okay, tell me, when students come to you to learn how to sculpt, where do you even start? How do you even get someone to think about sculpting? You do so many workshops, you're training students.
Yeah, yeah.
What's a good first step to take?
So I start with 7-year-olds also. Okay, they used to come to my studio and actually work with metal. So now when they come, so now I know their pattern. When they come, they're very apprehensive of even touching the metal. Okay,
Sure.
so I show them a slideshow on how I started and how I picked up this cogged wheel and made it into a sparrow's head. And I found a spanner and I cut it and I made it into the beak of the sparrow. And then I found a gear of a bicycle and I made it into a wing of the sparrow. And so I give them the freedom to pick up the pieces. I spread the scrap on the floor. There's about 15, 16 of them. And then I ask them to sort of pick up pieces and put it and start to sort of form things. Still, they still work in 2D because they keep things on the floor. They're still visualizing in 2D. And then I asked them, I said, okay, now pick up the pieces and start seeing them in empty space. Turn them around, visualize them that way. Then slowly
Sure.
you get into the 3D mold. And that's when they realize that when you weld it for them, of course, they don't weld it. They're too small to weld it themselves. Myself and my welders help them. They just show where it's to be attached. They take two pieces together. I take it away from them, weld it, cool it, and then give it to them. That's when they realize that slowly, slowly they're forming something that is completely 3D and from metal, which they never imagined they could do, you know. So that happens. And then, of course, the complexity of the piece depends on each person, on each individual, and on how sort of creative he or she is to be able to take it forward to another level, you know. And you'll be surprised, some of them sometimes are able to get the idea.
I think we're losing you. We're losing you here. I think the internet is just fading a bit.
So talking about the children, I was saying how much they work on a piece, how complex they make it.
I think your internet, the internet is fading out a bit. I'm not able to catch you.
I'm on.
Guys, can you hear him? Because it's fading out for me. Can anyone hear him? I think we're losing him. Arzan, we're losing you. I think the connection isn't stable because.
Okay, I can hear you very properly. Can you hear me right now? I can hear you very properly. I'm saying. Oh.
You're saying you can hear me properly?
Yes.
Your screen seems to have frozen at our end.
I think there are two people who have said yes. They can hear me. Yes, I can hear both of you. Yep. You can't hear me?
It's very muffled actually.
Okay.
Guys, can you hear him? Anyone watching, can you just reply? Can you hear him? Because at my end, his screen is frozen and it's very muffled.
Yes, we can hear you. I've got 4 messages saying yes, we can hear you. Headphones? I'm okay. Both are perfect, not frozen at all. Are you reading the messages? Are you getting the messages?
I can't hear you. I can just hear a muffled sound.
I'm surprised. Both of you are clear.
It's just
from my side, it's clear. I'm surprised.
Guys, can you guys hear him? See him? Bharat says yes, both clear. Yes, perfect. Okay, great. Okay, it seems like everyone can hear you now. Okay. So each child creates as per their capacity, correct? I mean, individual capacity and all that. And it's good. And so the first 10-15 minutes, it's like they're frozen. They don't know what to do, okay? And then once I let them loose, believe it or leave the studio. You know, literally do not want to leave the studio. And they're so comfortable working. They're so happy working there. And their drivers or their maids are outside waiting. And they say, Baba, you know, sort of your 2 hours are over, go. They don't want to go. They just love the studio space. They just love it that I give them complete freedom to experiment. I do not judge them. I give them complete freedom to experiment. I tweak them a little as to, doesn't this look better? Do you think that you should add this? But never saying, no, this is wrong. This is not done and do it this way and all that. Because each and every one creates to their own capacity and every work is perfect. There is absolutely no issues about that. Having said that, I have to tell you, having so many children's workshops done, there is, of course, you know how our kids are with the gadgets and all that these days, okay? Stuck on the phone and etc., etc. I'm very happy that some of the smartest kids that I have taught are from NGOs, are from slums, are from the street pavements, are from the villages. They are phenomenally smart. They are so inquisitive to learn, and there is a sparkle in their eye, which I find missing in the students that come from a very, very high level school. Somehow they enter the studio and there is that air about them that I already know about this. You know, there's a little bit of, you can actually feel it. And now after talking to so many students, I know it. And I mean, I've had such wonderful times with children from Teach from India for India. Teach for India.
Asima, so many. I'll keep Nargish Dutt Foundation, Jai Vakil,
Sure.
and beautiful.
Sure.
I mean, it's superb. So that it's. I mean, just to sort of get their response and their want to learn this so much. You know, they actually want this phenomenal. They come to the studio sometimes and they're amazed at what they see and what is going on there. You know.
Yeah, yeah, I feel like it's obviously them, but it's also you. I mean, just the last 60 minutes with you, it's the passion is infectious. You know, just listening to you talk, it's just you talk with such purity of thought, of purity of intent.
I think it comes out
Yeah,
naturally.
yeah, yeah, it is. You know, you said you were wired a certain way when you were a kid. I feel like that wiring has just gotten tighter over the decades. It's just amazing. Compliment here for you, some Hira Kagzi. She says you're a perfect teacher. Okay, that's very
Okay.
sweet.
So I'll tell you what I did in the lockdown. Just very interesting.
Please
So
do.
this,
Yeah.
of course, the idea was given to me by my daughter. Okay. So in the lockdown, you're at home, and like I said, I don't like wasting time. Okay, I hate wasting time. So I do a lot of black and white pen and inks. Also,
Sure,
my studio
sure.
wasn't open. I was cut away from the studio. So that's where my creative input went. I got my pens and I started drawing, etc., etc. Then my daughter said, "Why don't you start teaching this on Insta Live?" You know.
Hmm.
So I did sessions, and then the audience kept on growing and growing and growing. I started enjoying it. Then I said, "Why don't I do proper planned curriculums? You know, sort of in pen
Right.
and ink." And I've had about 300 students now. You know,
Wow.
all over. And sorry. So I've had about 300 students, and it's worked out so well. And each of them is doing their own thing in black and white and all that. And now you
Right.
are fading. What's happening?
We
Can you hear me?
very
Yes.
clearly, yes.
Okay. Okay. So it's wonderful. So that believe me, it got me in touch with 200, 300 more people. I
Young
enjoyed.
minds. And
They enjoyed learning, and it was like super. There was someone saying, "Please,
Well,
sir, may I know your qualification?"
ch charming Desert Rose, we touched upon this at the start of the conversation. You can, the whole conversation will be on the Reach IV Instagram page, on Spotify, on Ghana, on Apple, on YouTube. So you can watch it. But he said he was trained as an architect in the beginning,
Yes.
so that'll help.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so you started these workshops in the lockdown. You've had interacted with about 300 students. Is there something coming up? Is there something you want to announce? Do you have a workshop coming up? Do you have
I'll-
a show
So
coming up?
no shows right now. No shows right now, but definitely I'm going to do the black and white curriculums again. So keep a
Okay,
lookout for my Insta page. I've got two Insta pages, Arzan Khambatta and Arzan Studio. So keep a lookout there. I announce it there, and not blowing my own trumpet, sorry, but my students enjoy themselves so much, and especially the ones who say, "I cannot draw a single line, a single straight line." And
yeah, that's me.
I've made them do some amazing stuff. If I
Okay,
show you the kind of works they've done, it is so satisfying, and the interaction. You know, I mean,
okay,
I have demographic. I'll tell you what my student demographic is like.
please, yeah.
95% is women over 45. Okay,
Okay,
95% is women over 45. The rest are younger women, and there are only three men.
sure.
Out of the 300 students I'm talking about, there are three men, three or four men, you know. So it's wonderful. I mean,
Okay,
I sort of go into another zone. And so I started with one curriculum which I called the beginners course. Then after that was over, I did a new beginners and a intermediate. So all the beginners joined the intermediate. Then the intermediate went to a higher one. The higher one went to
sure.
another and another. And so I've
Wow.
got students now which have attached themselves to me since March now, and they are progressing from one day to the other, you know.
Okay,
So
please definitely do let us know because I'm in
oh,
the category of I can't draw a straight line.
you'll be
Um,
surprised. You'll be surprised.
and the Harvard MBA has obviously trained my brain in a very different way.
And
So
you'll be
this will
surprised what
be
you'll be. I mean, I can confidently tell you that now I've done so many that I can confidently tell you the artwork that you come up with is staggering, not just average also. I will say staggering, you know.
Okay, that we will definitely. I'm going to take you on that challenge. That will be one of the challenges for you, guys. As I'm closing on, okay, I see some questions here. Charming Desert Rose. I'll pick up one or two of your questions. What does a day in your life look like? Okay, Arzan, you want to since you're someone who
So,
values time so much, how do you spend
so
your time?
okay, so this is a normal day. Okay, of course there are,
Of
but
course.
generally, right from the beginning, when I used to work at the studio or in office or whatever, in dad's office, whenever, I used to make sure I shut work at 5. Till day
Okay.
today, every day I stopped working at 5. 5
Wow.
onwards,
Okay.
yeah. 5 is, I mean, that's the maximum. 5, I leave the studio. But like I said, unless there's some urgent commission work to be delivered,
Sure.
and there's some exhibition coming up, where then you don't see the time, then you sort of work all night or work till 2 in the morning or
Sure.
3 and all. So a normal day, I usually get up at 8. I'm at the studio by 9. Okay. I do my main work in the morning. Let's say before 1, I have exhausted myself in terms of creating, in terms of
Wow.
drawing. Either I'm sending an email of a new sketch I've done, either I'm responding to a query, either I'm actually on the floor creating something, giving instructions to someone, and I literally do not know by what time it is 1. You know, I just look at the clock and say, oh my God, it's 1 o'clock already. 1:30 I break for lunch. I'm back at the studio at about 2:30 and I work till 5. Okay.
That's
So
it.
that is what main day
Wow.
looks like. In that small compressed day, I managed to do a lot of stuff. Believe me. I mean, I like I
Hmm.
said, I won't be modest about how hard I work, but I managed to finish a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. A lot of thinking is done there. A lot of sketching is done there. A lot of modification. A lot of thinking as to what the next material will be. If I'm going out of town, as to what very how you say what monotonous work can I give the workers so they can keep cutting the material ready for me to
So it's
join when I
ready.
get. So
Sure.
everything is very well planned, and it's not haphazard. I mean, like one would think as an artist, you go there today, you
Yeah.
don't work. That no, it's not like that. To me, I have to be regimented. I have to have a very concise working day for me to be able to feel good. Of course, there are exceptions. Of course, there are exceptions. Sometimes
Okay.
I don't feel like doing anything at all. I move away from the studio. I go somewhere else or whatever. But otherwise, I sort of work like that. So after 5, it is either my yoga or either I walk. Or in the lockdown, I got a
Tell,
unicycle and
tell,
I learned unicycle. I
tell us
sort
a
of
bit
made it.
about the tell
Uh,
us a bit about your Iyengar yoga fascination. I read that you're really into Iyengar.
oh,
So
I love it. I believe I study under the world's best teacher. He's a good friend called Zubin Zarsosti Manish,
of
and he's
course, yes.
one of the top. I would rate him as one of the
Absolutely.
5 Iyengar teachers in the world today, not in India, not in Asia, in the world today. And
Sure.
it is his dedication, it is his intelligence. It's not, again, uh, I mean, now that I'm saying it, I'm thinking as to why I like him
Sure.
so much. It's not do this, do that, follow me, do this. He gives you that freedom to sort of do stuff within what your body is meant to do.
You find
And
your
how
own space. Yeah.
you can make that asana yours, how you can make that asana,
Sure.
tweak that asana to make it your own. Like I would give
Sure.
someone metal and say, make it your own piece, you know. It's just occurred to me
Sure.
right now as I'm saying it.
Sure.
So it is his intelligence, it is his knowledge of the anatomy and the detail to the craft that he has, which excites me more. And of course, he's a very good friend and a very good guru to be doing stuff
Sure.
under, you know.
Sure. Sure. I've had the pleasure of learning with Zubin as well, and he's absolutely
Oh, is that
phenomenal.
so?
So
Oh, wow. Oh, wonderful.
absolutely, yeah. Yeah, yeah,
In
yeah.
fact, you know,
Completely
I missed,
amazing class.
today I missed the class because of this interview.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so
No, no,
sorry.
no.
I'm so sorry about
I,
that.
you know how long I've been with him? 22 years.
Oh
22
wow.
years.
Oh
So
wow.
missing one class is okay. It's perfectly all right. Don't
Oh
apologize.
wow. Oh, lucky. You're
I,
fortunate to be
I,
training
I,
with Zubin for 22 years. Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
Atelier Habib,
Guys,
he's saying Kem
Habib,
Cho Arzan.
Atelier. Hello, Akif Bhai. Good to see you here.
Yeah, good to
We're doing fine, thank you. Okay, guys, I'm going to have to let Arzan go. It's been more than an hour, and we've been taking up
oh,
his time.
yeah.
I want to just ask you one final question. What do you do to fuel your creativity? Do you watch movies? Do you go on holidays? I know you're an avid traveler. Where do you find your creative fuel from? Where does it come from? Is it all just innate, or do you need to fuel it every now and then?
So like I said, I need my 5 o'clock cutoff time. Okay,
Sure,
I need 5 o'clock. As an artist, you never stop thinking. Okay,
sure,
so it's very difficult to say at what point of time your ideas come and all that. But yes, vacationing is very important for me because I just love seeing different places. I love seeing architecture. I love seeing nature. I love photography. And
sure,
so, you know, imagine this in your routine life, in your daily work, you need breaks to create excitement, isn't it? You need breaks to create
sure,
excitement. You see art, it's a visual break. Okay, you eat something good that you like, it's a gastronomical break. You break off, your mind
sure,
diverts
sure,
and it starts doing something in another area apart from your work. So in that way,
sure,
you're traveling the best because you're changing your location completely. You're completely
hmm,
changing your location. You're changing the kind of light that's around you, the smells that are around
sure,
you. You're with people. There is no work. I mean, I don't consider my work as work, but then you're not thinking of that. And it takes you into
absolutely.
another zone. And
Right,
I
right.
would say traveling is important, but that doesn't mean that when I'm traveling, inspiration strikes me. The mind
Sure,
needs to take these breaks off and on, either just cycling somewhere, or just
sure,
walking
sure.
some. When you won't believe it, when I'm most tired from the studio, okay, the thing that recoups me immediately is if I go on my podium and just take a walk in my garden, just
Sure.
nice
Yeah,
walk my music. I feel more rejuvenated. People
sure,
get mentally tired than physically tired in these days. You have to remember that. So the
sure.
more you put in a little bit of physical exercise or call it whatever, just even walking,
Yeah,
it completely revives you and sort of neutralizes the all the stuff that you've done in a day, and it prepares you for the night, for the evening, which is good because
sure,
you need to change that rhythm in you.
sure. Okay. So you basically say you sort of disconnect,
Yes,
whether it's a walk or a bicycle ride or travel or whatever.
yes,
You just
yes.
change your mind, your zone, and
Correct.
then
Listen to some music and movies. Yeah, you mentioned about movies. I love watching movies. Okay. I mean,
sure.
if, if,
Okay.
if I had a photograph of Netflix, I would put it and I would do agarbatti around it. So I just love my movies. I love comedies. My number one preference is comedies for everything that whether it's reading or watching movies or listening to something. I love humor in every form. And so
Okay.
that's my first preference. So I love seeing movies. It takes
Okay.
you to another zone completely.
Another realm. Okay. Okay. So
Yes,
it seems like you sort of disconnect, go to a different realm, come back,
correct,
disconnect
correct.
again.
Yeah. You need that. Your
Okay.
mind needs that constant play. You can't be in the same
Sure.
framework. You can't come home from work and keep thinking about work. I'm not talking of
Hmm.
myself. I'm talking of a person who works in a corporate office. You can't come home from work and still keep on answering your emails on the phone and keep on going on till night. Your mind needs a
Sure.
break. You have to take a break.
Sure.
There is no other way of doing it.
Sure. Okay.
Someone said,
Guys, on that note, I'm going to let. What time do you sleep? Okay.
11:30ish, 12ish, not later, 11:30, 12. Since you're
11,
so
because
into
he's
net,
an
but I want
he's an
then
early
I
riser, no? So okay, guys, we're going to let him have to break and go into another zone. Bharat is saying it was great talk, Arzan, always full of energy and enthusiasm. Thanks a lot. Thank you guys for all your questions and comments and suggestions. Arzan, thank you so much. This has been
thank
phenomenal.
you.
On a personal level, this has been really eye-opening for me, and I loved your comments about how you sort of just let children explore, experiment fearlessly. I'm going to
Correct.
take that with me. I'm going to write it down
Yeah,
somewhere. I
yeah,
absolutely love that.
yeah.
Not judging, not boxing people into good, bad, and average.
Correct.
Just letting people be. And I love your conviction. You knew very early on this is who you are, and you followed through. A lot of us are guilty of not following through. You're seeing talent in a lot of people, and you're sort of tapping that potential. I love that you're so egalitarian. You spoke so much about the children you work with from the NGOs, etc. Just this whole hour has just been dripping of your simplicity, and yet that simplicity probably comes out in your work because you're just sort of, I mean, you're just adorable. I'm just like, I have to meet this person because you've just been so frank, and you just speak,
Thank you.
whatever is on your mind. I've just loved this conversation. Thank you so much. So comment
Thank
here
you.
saying I love your bindas attitude. And of course, the mustache, I think, has done it for most of the women on the show. So that, thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
why don't you end by telling us how do people get in touch with you, and how do you sort of how can we get in touch with you if someone wants to commission a piece? What's the
Okay.
right way to do this?
I'm on Facebook as Arzan Khambatta. I'm
Okay.
I like I said, I do a lot of photography. I pick out signboards and I love the stuff. So I am on Instagram as Arzan Khambatta, and my works and my doodling stuff and all that is on Arzan Studio on Instagram. So three-way, and I keep on
Okay.
checking them regularly. So there's absolutely no problems. You can write to me on Facebook or Instagram, not a problem.
Okay. So someone can just directly message you on one of these
Yes,
platforms,
yes,
and
and
then
I'll reply.
okay.
I always reply.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm sure you always reply because you've been very patient and generous by replying to every one of our questions. So
Thank
thank you
you.
so much. I'm going to let you sign off. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you. Bye
Thank you.
bye. Bye bye.
Thank you.
See you
Bye
then.
bye.
Bye
Thank you.
bye.
All right, guys, that was Arzan Kambata sharing his life, his journey, and so many nuggets of wisdom. This session has been enlightening for me. I feel like just been doused with his wisdom, and his absolutely simple and austere approach to life and to work. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for tuning in. Excited to bring you another guest next Tuesday on House of Experts. Until then, going to sign off. The entire recording of this show will be on the Reach IV Instagram page. It will be on Spotify as a podcast, on YouTube if you want to see it in video, and of course on the reachiv.com website under House of Experts if you go to the main menu. Thank you all once again, and look forward to catching you on our next episode. Thank you.